This is a Hope 1032 podcast.
Trigger warnings. There are descriptions of abuse, sexual assault, and suicidal attempts within this episode. Some elements may be distressing. Listener discretion is advised. And if you need support during the episode or after listening, there are resources in the show notes.
I learned to forgive him for all that he'd done. I learned to love him. Christmas Eve, I went up to him in his office. I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, well, I just want you to know that Jesus loves you and I love you too.
I'm Georgia, and welcome to Finding Hope, the podcast that finds the good in the midst of the bad. Each episode, we meet someone who's had a bit of a hard time but has found hope and healing along the way. And hopefully they inspire you to embrace the good in your world too. Episode 35, Mel Baker, Part 2 of 4. Mel Baker is the kind of person that's hard to describe in a few words, or even a few sentences. She'd had experiences enough for 20 lifetimes by the time she was old enough to drive a car. If you haven't yet listened to the first part of Mel's story, go and listen to the previous episode first before you go any further. Last week, we heard of Mel's unimaginable abuse from her father, her sexual assault at multiple jobs, which led to her living on the streets at just 16 years old, and also multiple suicide attempts. After a few months, Mel knew that she would die on the streets if she did not return home. So, she barricaded herself in her room and went through drug and alcohol withdrawal alone for 2 weeks. It was then that she was looking through her school books and came across a Gideon Bible, which she opened to the verse, "Come to me, all who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest." For the first time in her life, Mel knew that God was with her no matter what. And so she began to believe. That is where this episode starts. Let's get back into it.
I was living at home, trying to stay away as much as I could. I found another job as a graphic artist. This one I was determined that no male is going to ever get near me. and that happened, which was good. And I worked in that place for about 18 months, and I left there because I had an opportunity to go to Papua New Guinea and serve with what was Asian Pacific Christian Mission then.
In the 18 months that Mel had been at home, she had started going to the Anglican church that her friends went to. She wanted to cherish her newfound relationship with God, and that led her to mission.
I got involved in mission because I was interested in it and interested in how my voice can speak into people's lives in various situations, especially outside the church. It was very much more a place where I wanted to be. And I think the opportunity, it presented itself to me. That's what I found all my life. I haven't applied for things. Those early jobs I applied for. But after those 3, opportunities will then come to me, and then I'd go, well, I know that's what I need to do. That's where I need to go.
Did you believe those opportunities did come from God?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
So Mel set off to Papua New Guinea for 3 months, alone, freshly 18.
I was up in Taree in the Southern Highlands, and I worked alongside other Papua New Guineans there in the print shop. You'd wake up with spears on fire in your front yard and overturned vehicles on fire, and they'll go, oh, the bridge is out again, so you can't go down to the markets. And so you learn to make your own sago bread and live off that, and have bucket showers of cold water mainly, or if you could boil the water, that would be okay. and an amazing thing happened there, though. I think the reason for me to go there was not only to be safe and have that experience away. I had most amazing experiences. Like I spoke, that was my first international speaking engagement. And I spoke in the Hari prison. I spoke at church and shared my testimony and was being translated. I learnt to speak some pidgin, and so I'd go out in the community and do that. Nearly got married at Tari Bible College because I looked at a Mao wrong. And you had to learn I was looking too much at the drummer in the church or something, and they went off and planned the wedding.
Oh no.
Yeah, not realising what I had done. Anyway, I got out of that, and then they had to buy something for the tribal leader. But the beautiful thing about there was I was sick a couple of days, and I picked up this book from the library, and it was the Merlin Carruthers, a chaplain in the army, Prison to Praise book, really old book, I think written 60s or 70s or something. And I was reading this while I was sick, and I just read a couple of lines, got to a couple of lines in it, and that talked about Merlin, the chaplain, said to this army guy, "Oh, do you want to have a chat later? Because I know that Jesus loves you and I love you too." And I just laughed my head off, thinking, what a strange thing to say to someone you just, as a chaplain, just walking past in the army. I just thought it was so funny. And then my laughter soon stopped when I heard God say to me, "Well, can you say that to your father?" And it was there at that point I learned to forgive him for all that he'd done. I learned to love him. And when I came back home from New Guinea, it was Christmas Eve. I remember it quite clearly. And I went up to him in his office and I did call him Dad then. And I said, "Dad, do you want to come to church with me tomorrow?" And it was before 11, so it was before he started drinking. And he said, "No, Pat, I can't." And then he looked back down at his paperwork. And then I put my hand on his shoulder and I said, "Well, I just want you to know that Jesus loves you and I love you too." And he stood up and he hugged me. And it was the only embrace we had ever. I felt a kind of healing from that moment on. I was able to stay in that house for another couple of years. And whilst I still didn't spend much time there, but I at least could have a amicable conversation with him rather than never talk to him or be frightened of him all the time.
A masterclass in forgiveness to anyone listening. How incredible. After Mel returned from Papua New Guinea, she started working full-time as a graphic artist, but felt a strong pull to return to mission.
I just had this heart for people and a burning after I had 3 months in Papua New Guinea, I just had this burning to do and a desire to be more than what I was doing. So I reach out that were mission meetings. I was on the committee for that and for about 6 years, and then I was placed on doing an administration role for the Centre for Evangelism and Mission, which wasn't called that, but it was something like that. And it was worked out at Eastwood Baptist Church. And so it was my first sort of like openings to another church other than Anglican. I felt included rather than sort of a bit dismissed in the Anglican church as a woman who really showed leadership and showed an ability to speak and talk into people's lives, and were sort of, well, you're a woman, you can only do that to children or other women. And so I sort of really found my voice in the Baptist church, although I was still going to an Anglican at the time. And I was invited by the assistant principal, vice principal of Morling, was on the committee with me, Bill Lang. He was on the committee with me at this centre. And after hearing my voice over a couple of years, he just invited me. He said, I think you should come to Morling and do a degree as a mature age student, since I hadn't finished school. And so I needed to wait till I was 25. So he asked me when I was around 24. And then the following year, I sort of like, well, I really wanted to go to Tarlee. And I actually had a position to go to Tarlee Bible College up north. And that's where I was heading to. And when I was 19, 20, I was like heading up there. It's mission focused. That's where I want to be. I live there. I get out of home, it's still that sort of anything to get me out of home. And they accepted me at 20. So I was going there. And then I met a man at a party, at a best friend's party. And she introduced us and said, oh, you two will get on really well. And we started dating. And I said to him, well, I was going to go to Tarlee and I'm like heading off there. And it was really that decision that you can't be in a relationship when you went there back then. And when you go off to a mission field, that's not something he was anything to do with, even though he was a Christian. And so I was like torn, like, what do I do? This is where I want to head. This is my purpose. But then I met this man who can also get me out of home. And so I went with the guy and we got married when I was 21 and following year. So basically had a sort of like a 13 months dating until we got married. And 6 months into the marriage, I was like, I made the wrong choice. And I felt everything within me was just going against everything that I felt while I was alive, like it was stifling me. And whilst he was a lovely guy, he had some emotional issues that really stifled our relationship. And then I was also numb to my childhood stuff and wasn't talking about that. So we were very strange relationship. And that lasted for 19 years. So I say I gave it my best shot. We had some beautiful times together as well, but some tough times mainly. And then when I lost that dream of I was going off to Bible college, this is where I need to be. And then I said to him, look, are you ever going to go to Bible college with me? Are you going to do this? And he's like, no, my work's IT. This is what I do. And so he was very sort of like, okay, that's never going to happen. So I need to find my voice now. I need to stand up for me. And because I was still working in graphic arts and then volunteering with Reach Out and this Centre for Evangelism and Mission. And I was just like going, this is my heart. This is what I have to listen to. And so when Bill Lang asked me, come to Morling, I can hear this is your purpose. And I thought, yeah, this is what I need to do. So I started with 2 part-time subjects just to check, can I do this? Can I actually do writing and essays? And I don't read anything really. So I never finished school. Can I actually do this? And I did mission subjects, obviously, and got HDs for both of them. Oh, I can do this. And so I started the following year full time, which they accepted me as the mature age student. And I found myself at Morling. The first year was tough because I had to deal with emotions that were dragging up some of my past that I wasn't willing to deal with when you go through ministry formation and trying to formulate your own life and where you've come from, and is very hard from what I had lived through and never talked about it. And so I was really finding who I was at college, and I absolutely thrived there. I became that independent person I was back when I was 16, 17 on the street, rather than being stifled in a marriage, and found my voice and again started speaking all over the world from there, like what I started when I was 17, 18 and lost it for a few years and then started speaking up again. And I thought, yes, I am now living my purpose again. I'm in the right space.
After 4 years, Mel graduated from Morling College with not 1 degree, but 3. A Bachelor of Ministry, a Diploma of Theology, and a Graduate Diploma of Christian Studies. But Mel wasn't able to be ordained, as the Baptist Church didn't yet allow women pastors.
Graduating and seeing all my male counterparts be ordained and go into ministry straight away, and I couldn't do that.
So what did you do then after graduating?
Well, in 1998, while I was still the assistant pastor at Carryong as part-time, still doing my full-time studies, I started a job at Baptist World Aid part-time. and initially that was promotions and graphic art stuff. So it was stuff that, and I was still doing all the volunteer for Reach Out and all the other things too. Those 2 days sort of working in a field that I felt like I was really passionate about, education, started really coming towards me. And I still knew that pastoring wasn't where I wanted to be, but I wanted to be recognised that when I go out on the field in whatever way that I'm representing the Baptist Church, that I am a reverend, like a male. I struggled with it for a long time, and I didn't understand why it couldn't be that. And then 2 years later, in 2000, I was able to be as the 6th ordained women in New South Wales. And that was a huge achievement for the church at the time. And being recognised that what I was doing, I had that voice and ability. So rather than being stifled, and dismissed.
Baptist World Aid brought Mel on full-time soon after she finished college, which started a brand new, exciting journey for her.
I became the promotions manager, hired someone else to help me with the graphic arts stuff, and then became the development educator. So then I was the first person who was put in deputation for Australia-wide. Oh my gosh. Then by the time I left, I'd created a team of people around me in every state, because I was travelling like 7 months of the year, which was really saving my marriage. I was travelling a lot, he was travelling a lot, and that was helping us to stay together. And then I had to go overseas at least once a year to learn about what we were doing with the poor in Asia and Africa, and what I'm speaking out in education in the churches around Australia is actually what's happening out on the field. And I was thriving. I was loving that, because I felt like I was doing the mission, doing my education, doing the evangelism, and seeing miracles at work, and also speaking out and doing all these international speaking engagements at youth summits and all sorts of places all around the world, and was loving it. I felt for the first time I was standing in my purpose. I was standing in why I was alive for a reason. And but then it takes a toll on you to work that much. You always have the thought of a dream job of paid travel, of going overseas and always being away, and you're always packing a suitcase. And to this day I could pack a suitcase in 5 minutes, because it's something I did so often. But you're always traveling and never having time for you, and never really even finding that time just to catch up with yourself, to know where you're at, because you're always in the future. I was always constantly thinking, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What can I plan for? What can I progress to? And I found in my late 20s, early 30s, that I missed out on so much of living because I was always in the future. And I look back and I go, they were my best days of my life, especially in my 30s. And I missed out on these beautiful moments. And I think that takes the toll, not only the travel, but just the not really realizing how important this moment is. There were amazing moments, like my first trip in Bangladesh was a real eye-opener. It was the first year in 1999, and I learnt all about how to step out in faith, what that actually means. That as soon as we got off the plane, I was with one of the aid workers at the time, and we got off the plane and met with our aid workers over there, the locals. And as soon as you step foot with all these people just coming around you, and you're not sure of, you weren't expecting seeing poverty in a city like Dhaka, and seeing all these unmade houses that they live in, and just the poor ways that buildings are done and roads are done, and you start traveling on that, and children are running after you and wanting, money, and white Australian, you must be rich, and compared, yes. It was just never ending everywhere we went. And every day you had to wake up with, okay, God, you've got me today, because I can't do this alone. I can't step out today without you. And I had no realization of that faith that we need every day, other than when I'm in those situations. Like in the Western world, we hardly ever really get that, because we know that we can easily live our life without God. But in scenarios where you're not sure what's going to happen, when you're traveling through heavy Muslim areas and you aren't allowed to have a Bible, you could be arrested and shot. And we had to have prayer meetings in the dark with the guard on the door in the middle of these areas, just to make sure that we weren't raided and will be killed. So you couldn't carry a Bible. You had to really know. We had to share in prayer meetings Bible verses from our mind that we would remember. And constantly I was singing songs in my head just to keep going, because that gave me faith, and it gave me hope, and gave me some joy from all what I was seeing. When I went to Africa, that was a totally different story. Africa was a heartland to me. I'd been there before. My mum was born in Kenya. I loved going back there, and so I went to Zambia and Kenya and Uganda, and every part of those places were so different. I mean, Uganda, I was shot at on the Congo border because we were turning back into the mission station too late. It was on sunset, and the Congolese were coming over and they were shooting at us, and I was crawled up on the bottom of the car and being shot at along, and the driver was just going as fast as he could to get into the gate. And he told me afterwards, he couldn't talk at the time, it was absolutely frantic, and there was holes in the door that had just missed me when we looked at the vehicle afterwards. And he told me what happened, and he said, they were the Congolese. If they got you, you would have been taken and kidnapped and ransomed back in the Congo, and we would have never been able to get you. So it was like huge, tight, amazing, in your face things that happened. And from my childhood, none of that fazed me. Like, it was just party to my life, it seemed. It was just something that I didn't expect it, but it was just something that seemed to always happen to me. I get in these really weird situations. But then when I went up to Uganda, I had these amazing times of miracles. I was standing in one place where the Coney had sort of broken out. All these old buildings were there, all the people had gone. And I had this thought in my head. I knew that I had to stand on top of these bricks of once where a house was and start speaking peace out into the area. And as I started speaking peace, people would be coming out from the forest and started crowding around me. And then I started speaking in their language without even knowing. And another person I was traveling with said to me, "Did you know you started speaking their language?" And I said, "No, it was all God." And it was the most amazing experience to know that there was healing happening in that place right then and there, because I chose to listen to what I needed to do rather than ignore that, but to stand up for it and stand up for them. And I don't know what happened after that to those people, but I just, kept on praying for them. And there was times where we'd travel on the next day. We went into an area that was drought for 3 years and they had no crops left. And I said, right, okay, let's get together and do some rain dancing and praying as we're rain dancing, and we'll get something going, because our faith will believe that. And we travelled away. We did that, and then we travelled away for 3 days, then came back. And when we came back, we said, hey, what happened? Did it rain? And they said, yeah, it rained for the last 3 days, and it only happened within our area of our camp. Like, it didn't rain outside the fence of their camp. And just miracle after miracle like that continued to happen. And when I learnt when I'm so in tune with God and with my faith, and I trust that, and I trust my intuition and what's going on inside me, and I speak out, amazing things happen. And it was learning to listen to those voices, that inner quiet voice, knowing that, this is exactly what I've got to do. And then I see these things happen in front of me and go, wow, God is at work everywhere.
Thank you so much to Mel Baker for sharing the second part of her incredible story. Tune in next week to hear how Mel's gifts take her to Northern Ireland to heal police officers over there before returning to Australia and entering the Navy, where everything turned upside down again. Mel has written a book about her life. It's the first in a trilogy. It's called Sleeping Under the Bridge, and you can find more details in the show notes. And if you need support after listening to this episode, Lifeline is available on 13 11 14. And if you or someone you know has been impacted by sexual assault, domestic or family violence, call 1-800-RESPECT on 1-800-737-732 or visit 1800respect.org.au. Both of these resources are also available in the show notes. I'm Georgia, and thank you for listening to this episode of Finding Hope. I would love to hear your feedback. You can send me an email, a review, or share it with your friends. Stories are always better when they're shared. and you never know what you can learn from someone else's journey. If you or someone you know has a story of hope to share and you'd like to be interviewed for the podcast, I'd love to hear from you. You can leave a comment on the Finding Hope page at hopepodcasts.com.au. For now, I'll leave you with this verse. For we walk by faith, not by sight. 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 7. Catch you next time.
This is a Hope 1032 production. Thanks for listening.